Hi, I'm TR, and this is my mid-century ranch home renovation project. So back in day 3, maybe 4, I lost track of refinishing these floors. And I'm back to filling the floors. I ran out of steam last night, so I just threw in the towel. But I know I have a problem, and that's that this stuff is going on way too thick, and it's drying instantly. And I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. Well, I didn't know what to do. So out of sheer desperation, the place I got this stuff is closed. It was after 5, and they're closed on the weekend. Otherwise, I'd just go get another pail if they had one. Even if I had to drive 90 miles round trip, because I don't want to change what I'm doing with this in the middle of a job. It just doesn't make sense. So out of sheer desperation, I called a guy that was the only contractor as far as people I'd called to get an estimate on refinishing the floors. And he actually answered his phone. The rest of them, they didn't even return my calls. But he answered his phone, and we had a nice chat. But he seemed like a really nice guy, and he said, well, I'll give you 2 numbers. $4 a square foot, provided you're not staining, and 3 months. It was going to be 3 months before he could work me in. Okay, so it looks like I'm doing it myself. I thought I'd just check. And in total, I'm probably doing 600 square feet. It'd been $2,400, and I want them stained. So it'd probably been maybe $3,500, $4,000, something like that to get all these floors done. So I feel like I'm still ahead in the game, but this stuff is way too thick. I called him again last night and chatted with him, and I says, man, this stuff is going on so thick, it hits the floor, it dries instantly. And he said, well, where'd you get it? And I told him. He says, yeah, you know what, you got an old bucket. And I'm like, what? He said, yeah, that stuff, when it's old like that, when it's been sitting on a shelf for a while, he says, what you need to do is just add a little bit of mineral spirits to it, thin it out, stir it up really good. And I came back and I read the label. I'd read the label before. They list mineral spirits as one of the contents of this. And mineral spirits are really just a thinner. It'll thin down materials that are, use mineral spirits. And so I just added a little bit, like maybe 3 teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon or 2. And I've got this now where it's really thin. And I tried a little experiment first before I took him at his word. That looks good. Okay. So what I did was I took a little bit of it, I mixed it up, and I tried it. And it looks like it's going to be just fine. I don't see any issues with it. It went on a lot thinner and a lot faster. I mean, I was working my ass off last night trying to spread this out. Because like I said, once it hit the floor, it was drying instantly. It would turn from somewhat, liquid spreadable to just a mass, a glob. And so I was in a pinch. Anyway, long short story is I'm going to thin this out. I'm going to go back to doing this floor. And keep your fingers crossed that I'm not creating a mess for myself. So I've got all the floors basically now with the filler on them, and started sanding in here. And I'm just going to continue to sand until I get all the filler sanded down. And then we'll be ready to do a real good thorough vacuuming, and then we're ready to start staining. Okay, so that's about an hour of work in 2 minutes. Let's take a look. I sort of inadvertently ended up with kind of a cool pattern. We got the final sanding done. I just finished the sanding there with 100 grit sandpaper. The living room, dining room, the hall, and the bedroom are all sanded and ready for stain. And today, it's finally time to stain the floors. Been a while getting here. I've got about 2.5 days of prep into these floors. I finished sanding last night. I was completely exhausted. I was just tired and needed to take a break. So we're gonna pick this up now with me getting these floors clean and ready for stain. And so what the process is going to be is first I'm going to vacuum them. Then I'm going to go around with an edge and crevice tool, and I'm going to carefully clean all the crevices and edges of the floor. I just don't want to inadvertently pick up any dust and drag it into the stain when I'm putting it on. Then we'll stain the floors. We've got about a 4 to 6 hour wait time before we can come back. We'll hit it with 220 paper, sand it really quick, then we'll go ahead and then we'll go back and we'll clean again. Completely clean the floors, then we'll use tack cloths on it, get up all the remaining dust, and we'll go in with our poly. So that should be sometime later this afternoon or early this evening, fingers crossed. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget to subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, lots of great videos still to come around how I'm renovating my 1950s mid-century ranch home. Also, there's a playlist linked in the description below with all of the videos in order from start to where we are today, so you might find that useful as well. All right, let's get going. This boy is tired, but making good progress here, just finishing up on this staining. I've got all the rest of the house stained, and we're up here to the last little 100 square feet of the living room here. I'm using Minwax, and I've used 3/4 of a gallon so far. Probably just gonna have enough. That's a good thing. Don't want to have any leftovers. One of the things I want to mention is that when you dispose of your wipe rags, there's a chance for spontaneous combustion, so you don't want to wad them up and throw them in a garbage can. You can store them in a bucket of water, just dump them in a bucket of water. That'll stop them from, igniting. And so that's probably what I'll do at the end of this. But As far as tips go, I like to use an old piece of cardboard. All right, it's absorbent and it keeps you from leaving bucket rings on the floor. 4-inch brush. You can wipe it on with a rag. Since I'm doing such a large area, I just bought a 4-inch brush here. This is a stain brush. Just let the excess drip off and then just go to it. Let me move the light back here a little bit. I just like to put on a nice even coat. I did lift the grain on these floors, and so how I lifted the grain was I took a wet towel, damp towel really, and I wandered around here and I wiped all the floors with a damp towel. It did a couple things. One, it helped me get the last of the sanding residue up. And two, it lifts the grain, which allows this stain to penetrate a lot faster, a lot deeper. So you of course want to try to work with a wet edge. Like in all painting, it's nice to try to maintain a wet edge. And so I've been trying to do that as much as possible. I just work in an area about, I don't know, as far as I can reach. And I'll work ahead here, you know, a little ways. I wish I had a respirator, I don't. You can't buy a respirator, you can't find a respirator in these times because of COVID. So I'm doing the best I can here. You don't want a lot of air moving through here, that'll bring dust in, and we don't want any dust in it. I mean, we just spent 2 hours getting it dust free as we could, so anyway, I'm just gonna keep going here. So don't get big puddles. I like to try to keep it pretty much, you know, stretched out. And now we're just gonna come back here and we're just gonna wipe. Up the excess. Because I lifted the grain, there is not a lot of excess stain left. It's getting sucked right into this wood. This is maple. And maple is really hard, so that's one of the reasons why I went ahead and lifted the grain, was to get better stain penetration. And it's looking great. It's looking really consistent across here. I mean, you know, with respect to the grain of the wood, you know, there's the variations, but man, it looks really good. I'm really happy with the way it's turning out. But I gotta get going here because it's getting late. Obviously, the sun's down. I don't even know what time it is. I haven't looked. It's got to be coming up on 9 o'clock. So if you found value in this video, I'd appreciate your thumbs up. Those are always great to get. Questions or comments, you can make them below, as long as they're kind. If you're not subscribed, be sure and feather that subscribe button. That's what we've been doing to the floor here today. It's feathering. There's a lot more episodes around this mid-century ranch home renovation project still to come. I'm going to close with a shout out to Mountain West Rentals. Manny, you done me good. We had some problems getting the right sandpaper, but we got it worked out, and this is going to be an amazing floor. So thanks for watching, I sure do appreciate it. Until we get together for another mid-century ranch home renovation project. Peace.